speech, by the way.
Thank you, Minister Flynn. Our next speaker is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Construction Secretariat. The OCS is a joint labor management organization dedicated to the advancement of unionized ICI construction. Your executive board has attended several seminars and conferences put on by the OCS and have always been very impressed with the level of content, the education, and the understanding that we come back with. And we're so delighted that he has agreed to come here today to share that knowledge with you, our brothers and sisters, and our guests in the room. Please welcome Mr. Sean Strickland.
Thank you very much, and good morning, and thanks for that very kind introduction, Rolly, and thanks to you and Carmen and the Executive Board for extending this invitation here this morning. I just want to say that it's always a real pleasure to share a podium and to listen to the Honourable Kevin Flynn, Minister of Labour. You know, over the years, there's been a lot of really good ministers of labour in the province of Ontario, but I can say that I don't think I've ever met or heard from a minister who cares so deeply and compassionately about workers in the province of Ontario. And I'd just like to say thank you very much, Minister Flynn, for all the work you continue to do on behalf of workers in the construction industry. So before I get started, just wondering, are there any soccer fans in the audience? No, I don't think so. So anyone see that TFC game earlier this week? I know. If you didn't watch it, you didn't miss much. And then what about Roma, Carmen? How are they doing over there? Yeah, pretty good. Eh? So, Roma, something you eat. You must be a Juventus fan over here. Yeah. So, anyways, it's great to be here. As Rolly mentioned, we're a joint labor management organization. We're formed in 1993, dedicated 100% to the advancement of unionized construction in the province of Ontario. And what the Executive Board have asked me to do here this morning is share with you a little bit about the work picture going forward. Where's all the work going to be in Toronto, a little bit in Ontario. Also share with you some of our research projects, in particular related to safety. We've done a groundbreaking safety research project trying to determine whether or not there's a union safety effect in the province of Ontario, and also share with you a little bit of our branding exercise that we've done for unionized construction in Ontario. So just in terms of the OCS, we put together a video which really explains what the OCS does. And we're guided by employer bargaining agents, so those who represent contractors, employee bargaining agents, those who represent unions, and also government advisors. And the Labor's Union has been well represented on our board for a number of years. Cosmo Manella remains on our board and has provided tremendous leadership to our organization and the industry in the province of Ontario. Here's a summary through this video of what we do on behalf of the industry every day. Oops.
The Ontario Construction Secretariat, established in 1993, is an organization focused on advancing Ontario's unionized construction industry in the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector, representing the interests of labor, management, along with its government partners. The OCS develops relationships, facilitates dialogue, provides industry-specific research, promotes the value of unionized ICI construction to owners and buyers, and works with its industry stakeholders to identify and resolve important industry issues. The OCS is also committed to the youth of Ontario. Each year, Future Building, an annual interactive career exhibition, encourages students to consider a career in the unionized construction industry. Knowledge, network, and credibility are the three guiding pillars that give the OCS a solid strategic base to provide in-depth research and reporting, forecasting and analysis, and data to assess current and future market trends. Research is the foundation of the OCS and underpins each of its strategic objectives: improved construction labor relations, positive perceptions of unionized construction, and progressive public policy for Ontario's construction industry. The Ontario Construction Secretariat is dedicated to the advancement of the unionized industrial, commercial, and institutional construction industry. knowledge to build on.
So there's a little summary of what the OCS does for our industry every day. And as you heard in that video, what we do is based as much as we possibly can on empirical research, often third-party research. And through that research, we are able to articulate the value proposition of unionized construction to owners and buyers of construction in the province of Ontario. And right now, I'm just going to share with you a couple of examples of some of our research projects. Collective bargaining is coming up. Carmen had talked to you about that earlier. Well, one of the things we do is we help both sides understand the challenges and opportunities in our industry across all trades and with all contractors through the EBA network. We developed a couple of tools, the Collective Bargaining Toolkit and the Collective Agreements Database. The toolkit has all kinds of information in there that both sides use to help in their bargaining process. Talks about economic and inflation analysis, major projects, other industry settlements. And so when we get a call from the contractor representative asking for information, economic information about Ontario, we provide them with information that they've requested, but at the same time, we give it to the labor side. So we're providing the same information to both sides as they go through the collective bargaining process. And I think that helps strengthen the process going forward. We've also come up with a really new tool for members only, those in the unionized industry, called a Collective Agreements Database. There's no other tool like this in North America for unionized construction. And on this database, we have all the collective agreements for all 25 trades in the province of Ontario. And through those collective agreements, we have some really good people on staff, and they've broken the agreements out and they've analyzed them into different sections. And we have analysis and breakdown for each of the collective agreements by trade, by geographical region, as you can see there, by wage package, contributions to training funds, health and welfare and pension, and so on. And so oftentimes during bargaining, we'll get questions from both sides. For example, what's the shift premium for this trade versus this trade? What are the overtime provisions for this trade versus another trade? What are the hours of work and so on? And so we have the database where our stakeholders can go in there on their own, password protected, examine that information and help inform the process as they go forward. You can take a quick screenshot of that if you want, or write it down if you're interested. Tripartite 2015, OCS 2015. That'll give you access to that collective agreements database. Okay, so Rolly had asked about economic and market outlook. So obviously, brothers and sisters, you're really interested in this. Where's the work going to come from? You heard from Mayor Tory. You'll hear from Mayor Jeffries a little bit later. The economy looks pretty good, but what does that mean in terms of breaking it down into analysis and work picture going forward? Ontario, you can see here for our forecast for GDP growth, and gross domestic product is really what drives investment activity. This is a really good indicator of how strong your economy is going to be. And as you can see, Ontario there, the projection for 2015, 2016 is 2.1, slightly greater than Canada. And you can see the U.S. 2.4. A strong U.S. economy is good for Canada. It's good for construction, because a strong U.S. economy coupled with a lower Canadian dollar means we're going to export more. And if you follow the news recently, manufacturing's on an uptick in the province of Ontario, and that's good for work in car plants and steel mills and mining in the north. So the economic picture looks reasonably good for Ontario going forward. There are some headwinds, and it's economics, and you never really know what kind of world crisis may have a negative impact on the economic situation. But this is the best information we have for a forecast going forward. But I always have to put a little bit of a caveat on there about forecasts, because these are done by economists, and it reminds me of this old joke that how many economists does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. They assume there will be light. All right, okay. I got to work on my jokes, I guess. So anyway, economics, like I'm a poli-sci major, and I studied economics as a minor, and years ago they used to call economics the dismal science for good reason. So what does this translate into investment forecasts? So you can see here that it looks pretty good for the Greater Toronto Area. Engineering would be roads and bridges and subways and light rail transit and those kinds of things. And total ICI building, of course, you know, industrial, commercial, institutional. So you can see from 2006, we've had a pretty good run in the construction industry. And as we go forward, we're going to see some slight increases, but not like for some of those who've been around since the 80s and 90s. Construction used to go in peaks and valleys, and Carmen and the executive board would know that. You'd have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of guys laid off and very difficult circumstances to deal with. But for our industry, thanks in many ways to investment from federal and more predominantly provincial governments, we've been able to ride out some of these economic headwinds in the general economy and have a pretty good work picture for the past number of years and also going forward. Not like off the charts growth, but if you look at that, pretty solid growth in terms of billions of dollars. Here are some of the major projects in the Greater Toronto Area. None of these will be a surprise to you. The Eglinton Crosstown, the largest infrastructure project in the history of Ontario, which has got a good mix of civil engineering work and also ICI with all of the stations. You can see that this list is pretty well dominated by light rail and heavy construction with respect to higher orders of transit. You can also see some ICI projects in there with courthouses and hospitals and so on. So here's an example of some of the big projects, and they're quite large. They're quite large in terms of their estimated values. For a little bit of a snapshot of the rest of the province, Central Ontario, you can see this is the same kind of chart. Projects or investment looks fairly solid going forward. Not nearly the same amount as you have in the Greater Toronto Area, but the trend line is up. It's the same thing for Eastern Ontario. You can see some of the peaks and valleys they've had in Eastern Ontario in the early 2000s, but the trend line is up and pretty steady going forward. Southwestern Ontario, where you have the automotive heart belt of Ontario, you can see a little bit more volatility in terms of work picture. But as I mentioned earlier, manufacturing is looking good, and so that's going to help with construction activity and investment over the next couple of years. Northern Ontario, more peaks and valleys. With the decline in commodity prices, there's not going to be a lot of work in the north. There's a new gold mine coming up. There's not going to be a lot of work in the north. In the north, the work is really related to commodity prices and particularly copper. If copper goes up, you're going to see more activity in Northern Ontario. So when you add all this up, and there's where all the numbers come together, you can see there the 2016 forecast in terms of billions of dollars for the Greater Toronto Area. And Central Ontario, Eastern Ontario lagging a little bit, but $24 billion, that's a pretty good number. Southwestern Ontario and also Northern Ontario. So those are fairly significant numbers, and if you look going back to 2013, it's from 34 to approximately 38 billion, so more investment, but it's steady as she kind of goes over the next couple of years, which I think is a good thing and good for our industry. Lots of work opportunities out there, a situation that'll be reasonably well managed in terms of our abilities and industry's supply to these major projects. So I want to switch now and talk about one of the initiatives that we're undertaking, and I know LiUNA has invested a lot and has done a fantastic job in your branding and Feel the Power, and you can't go to the ACC or watch a sports game on TV and not see Feel the Power in LiUNA. You guys have done an excellent job there. So in our own small way at the Ontario Construction Secretariat, we've launched a branding exercise as well called Unionized Construction Works. And I really encourage you to go to our website and check out Unionized Construction Works, and you can have a look at all of the different activities and research that we have on this website. You know, years ago, we used to say as a unionized industry to an owner that you have to use union. Well, in many ways, we were the only choice. We know that's not true anymore. And then when we started to have more competition, we always used to say to an owner, anyways, you still need to use union. Why? Well, because we're safer and we're better and we're more productive. And that's all true, but we need to prove that. And we need to prove that every day in our performance on the job site, and we need to prove it with also third-party research. And that's what we've done at the Ontario Construction Secretariat on this website with unionizedconstructionworks.com. Fact base about our industry, focusing on our 5 key pillars. What is it that an owner looks for when they hire a contractor of choice? What do they want in their workforce? Safety, workforce, ability to supply, skills, your ambitious and fantastic plans for a new training center. That is what the unionized industry is all about, so we can continue to train apprentices and upgrade journey persons. Productivity on the job and stability. Very important keys for owners when they're making decisions. So let's talk about safety for a second. We've said for years that we're safer than the non-union competition. Prove it. We've got to move beyond just saying that we're something. We got to prove it. And we can't just say it ourselves. We're the Ontario Construction Secretariat. We're a joint labor management organization dedicated to the advancement of unionized construction in the province of Ontario. So if we come out and say, hey, we've done a study that shows that union is safer than non-union, people are going to say, well, you know, of course you're going to say that because you represent the unionized industry. So what we did, and what we tend to do for these major research projects, is we partnered with the Institute for Work and Health, a third-party independent research organization affiliated with the University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, University of McMaster, and we asked them to do this study. And we agreed to publish the results regardless of what they said. We had a pretty good idea that we were going to be safer, but we agreed that we would publish the results regardless of what they said. And the Institute for Work and Health is affiliated and has a data sharing arrangement with the WSIB. So essentially what we did is we gave the lists of all our unionized contractors, and Institute for Work and Health broke them down by classification units, and they looked at their lost time injury reports, they looked at musculoskeletal critical injuries, and then they compared that to the non-union across approximately 10,000 different contractors in the province of Ontario. To ask this question, is there a union safety effect? This is not a back-of-the-envelope study. This is examining 7 years of data, 45,000 construction firms over that 7-year period, 1.5 million workers. This is a sophisticated study, peer-reviewed, which means other scientists looked at this study. It was actually published in the Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine. This isn't a survey, this is science. And what the science says, brothers and sisters, that yes, in Ontario there is indeed a union safety effect, and it is significant. 23% fewer lost time injuries than non-union, 17% fewer musculoskeletal injuries, and 29% fewer critical injuries than non-union competition. And for that, everyone in this room deserves a round of applause, for sure. Thank you, Jack. Now, you may look at these numbers and say, well, 29, 23, 17, okay, that doesn't sound that great. This is significant. WSIB last year paid out $528 million to injured construction workers in the province of Ontario. Staggering number. But we're 23% safer. Just using using some quick math. What's 23% of $528 million? That's how much we saved the system in terms of lost time injuries last year. Tens of millions of dollars every year. Now, of course, we can't rest on these results. We can't rest on these results. One injury is one injury too many. One fatality is one fatality too many. We all know that, and we've had some real struggles with that area in the last couple of years. But these results are significant and are very beneficial for owners when they make buying decisions for construction in the province of Ontario. So we're real pleased with these results. We're going to meet with the minister and continue to meet with the minister to see what we can do to turn these results into better public policy to help the safety for all construction workers in the province of Ontario, which I think is a real important objective of this study as well. Okay, workforce. If you go to the website, you'll be able to see this. 105,000 unionized tradespeople across the province of Ontario, 5,000 signatory contractors, ICI sector. Skills. Why are we safer? Well, one of the reasons we're safer is because the investment that 506 is going to make in your training center. Across the province of Ontario, our industry spends $40 million a year on training. $40 million a year in training. We deliver it in 100 jointly managed training centers in the province of Ontario. And the capital value of those facilities is approximately $260 million. So when it comes to training, there's no other construction organization, contractor, and or labor force that can compete with this kind of training that we do in the province of Ontario. And we need to continue to do this. Productivity. You know, it makes sense that if you're safer, you're going to be more productive. Ministry of Labor's own stats says if you're safer, you're going to be more productive. We also show that we as an industry have flexibility. Project labor agreements across different sectors. We're willing to work with owners to help gain market share and improve productivity. And stability. The first construction union in Ontario was in Hamilton, the Bricklayers, in 1881. I noticed that 506 is also coming up pretty well on 100th anniversary, 1919 when you were formed. We've not only been training workers and upgrading journey persons and delivering a safer product in the province of Ontario, we've been doing it for over 100 years. That's pretty hard to compete with. And this is the value proposition of the unionized construction industry in the province of Ontario. And at the Secretariat, we're really proud to be a part of it, gather this information, and share it with buyers of construction. UnionizedConstructionWorks.com, I encourage you to go and check it out. Now I'm going to share with you a little bit of a video that we did for this website. It's called a sizzle video. New term to me, but let's see if we can get some sizzle out of this. Oh, did it get on there? There we go. There you go. Unionized construction works because of folks like you, brothers and sisters in this room and right across the industry. And at the Secretariat, we're really proud to be a part of this industry and share the value proposition with owners and buyers of construction and government leaders every day. Keep up the good work, and thank you very much for the invitation today.